checking out at the grocery store line when someone goes, oh, what are you gonna do right now? And they're just making small talk, and I say, oh, I'm going to my work. And they say, what's your work? And that's when people go, whoa, you do what?
When I was in high school, I assembled a skeleton of a goat, so that was something kind of odd. I've always been interested in science, so my friends and family weren't really shocked to see me get into something like this.
It's bizarre to find myself here. It's weird to think now, looking back on it, but my entire experience at the school would have been very different had I not worked here in a lot of different ways.
The first time I ever saw it was on my tour during orientation week. So during my first year, I decided to do the training program.
They put up posters around campus to advertise about the training program, and I just kind of saw that it was here, and I thought it sounded like a really interesting opportunity.
I think when most college students will do this sort of thing is internships, and they'll work with, you know, some sort of advisor who will talk them through their projects, and this is very different from that.
A lot of people are very surprised or shocked that someone my age would be working at a reactor.
Mostly they're confused about why a philosophy mathematics major at an undergraduate college would work in a nuclear reactor.
You know, at some other facility, my position would probably be filled by some, you know, 30, 40-year-old ex-Navy nuclear engineer, right? And instead I'm a, you know, a physics senior here at Reed College, which is kind of fun. So the reactor itself was built in 1968. There was a chemistry professor here by the name of Arthur F. Scott. He was the chair of the chemistry department at the time. But one of the things that's always lacking in a small school is science education, right? It's hard to get the funding for it. So he tried to pull together the funding to really boost that science education through getting his own research reactor.
Well, there's been a lot of concerns, especially recently after the Fukushima incident, about reactors and the safety. But our reactor is a research reactor, so Trigger Mark I, and it only operates at 250 kilowatts, which is a very small power compared to power reactors.
A power reactor is on the order of gigawatts, so like billions of watts. It's much, much, much bigger. You see like the buildings and buildings that house power reactors versus ours is about the size of a washing machine, and it's underneath the little 25-foot pool in there. It's not very big. We've gone through as much fuel in the lifetime of our facility since 1968 as a power reactor goes through in about 15 minutes.
So when we, as a reactor, got built, one of the things that we had to do, obviously, is to do a lot of safety analyses. You create this hypothetical, maximum hypothetical accident, right? So first thing, the water has to go. Second thing, we're going to assume that all of our control rods, the things that we would use to shut down the reactor, get stuck. So now you assume that whichever our fuel element that is the most reactive spontaneously bursts. Oh, one more thing, because this is not enough. So we also assume that the north wall of the reactor just is gone. You find that even in our worst possible scenarios, nothing major happens. What we describe this as is that we would never need, under any circumstances, external help to kind of contain our own worst possible scenario.
So the training process to get a reactor operator license is a year long.
At the end of your year, you'll take an exam with the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, sends a couple people down here to give basically tests to our license candidates.
I remember being really, really nervous. We were really, really well prepared, and almost everyone passes, but you know, there's a government agent sitting there like quizzing you, and it's pretty intimidating.
And if you pass the exam, then you get your very own shiny reactor operator's license, which is basically just a piece of paper that allows you to operate the reactor, which is pretty cool. our big use of a reactor is basically as a machine for generating huge quantities of neutrons. The neutrons are what's actually making things radioactive.
A neutron will come in, and the neutron hits the uranium atom. And uranium does something funny when a neutron hits it. Not a lot of atoms do this. It'll release 2 or 3 more neutrons when it breaks apart. Those neutrons will find new uranium atoms, and they'll hit those uranium atoms. So this is why they call it a chain reaction. It's because you have one that causes 2, and then this will go on to cause some more, and then those will cause more.
So if you take a sample, you put it in, it becomes radioactive, you pull it out, and then you analyze that radiation coming off of it, you can figure out what was in your sample initially.
My favorite experiment to tell people on tours about, if you take the fingernails of someone who's worn like a gold wedding ring for a long time, you clip their fingernails, and then you put all those in the reactor, and then you can run a gamma spectroscopy to find out what's in their fingernails. You'll find that you can figure out which fingernail came from the one where they were wearing the gold wedding band, because little trace atoms of gold have kind of leaked up their fingers and actually into the fingernails, and you can detect those gold levels in there. So that's how sensitive the readings we can get from the reactor are. So you can imagine there's more practical uses to that too, right? You can take soil samples from the canyon nearby and find out if there's metals leaking into it that you didn't know about and stuff like that. You know, the kind of person who works here has to be willing to just donate massive amounts of their time for the sake of science and love of learning, and you kind of have to be a sort of goofy, intellectually minded human to even want to be here in the first place. I like the culture here a lot.
There used to be a power reactor near Portland. It was called the Trojan Power Reactor, and they had these 3 detectors. And so they, when they shut down, donated these 3 detectors to us so that we could use them for our research purposes. Since these were then Trojan gamma spectrometers, and because everyone here at Reed College had read the Iliad, that we should name all of our Trojan reactors after actual Trojans.
Yeah, there are definitely some inside jokes to the reactor. We do fun things together. Like, for example, sometimes on Friday nights we'll have Reactor rock band. So everyone will come down to the facility, and the classroom will be playing like rock band down at the reactor facility. I formed a lot of really great friends here at the facility that I spend a lot of time with, and it's been a really wonderful experience.
Fukushima happened while I was working here. My mom called and talked to me about it, and I remember her talking about how she thought that my dog at home was acting strange because of the radiation wafting over the sea, and I'm like, okay, first, calm down. And then I kind of talked to her about it, and you know, it's nice because, you know, I'm kind of this island of knowledge about nuclear reactors now that other people I know from back home can now rely on.
I'm not sure whether there is any sort of direct way in which I will ever use it in the rest of my life, because it's not even the high theoretical knowledge that I have of this. It's very, very hands-on practical knowledge. It's like, how do you fix the pump when it's broken? But I mean, I think there's lots of lessons about learning that you get to keep forever, and I think everything that you've ever learned helps you.
So I am wearing personal dosimetry. I have these 2 ring dosimeters and then this badge. And what that does is it measures the radiation we're exposed to. The dose I get at the reactor is incredibly small. It's actually probably less than you might get walking around outside.
And so every 3 months I get, you know, a dosimetry report back that's like, the last 3 months you received a dose that was undetectable, because these things have their own minimum threshold for how much that it can read, and 97% of all of our dosimeters come back below that threshold.
Why I'm wearing my warm body badge. So anytime that we're operating, you have to have a second person in the building. There has to be the licensed operator who's actually at the controls and looking at the console. But then in addition, you need a second person whose sole duty is to be a warm body. So in the event that something happened to the operator, if they have an allergic reaction all of a sudden or something, the warm body's job is to press the button that emergency shuts off the reactor and call 911. Yeah, so it just so happened that I had to be, well, as of a few minutes ago, the warm body while they were operating in the next room.